Hello, Don in London, 15th of February 2013. A lot going on in the news, but calm down, Don. My video is all about addiction, recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour could be equally addictive around people, places and things. Work, women, romantic interludes. I'll mention that a bit later. And generally not really understanding life too well under the influence of drink. So how long did this go on, this escape from reality and into oblivion, and then into a living hell? Well, far too long. So there's no prizes for how long it takes to stop drinking, and there are no real prizes for longevity in recovery from addiction. What works for me is to live one day at a time, where my feelings fit with what is going on, and that history doesn't trouble me, and I am open, honest and willing to change today and not drink. So what helped me? Well, professionals got me dry for a bit, and then I went off the rails again and again. And then eventually I got to a place where there was only one answer: to try and find people who were sober and staying sober for as long as they could. And some of these people have been living sober for over 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, 10 years. But what counts is living one day. And that is where I got to. A fellowship which helps one day at a time. And that fellowship is Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I share about how AA helps me on a daily basis. I don't share the stories of other people, but I have their experience, strength and hope, and their wisdom one day at a time. So the fellowship of AA turned out to be what you see is what you get on a daily basis, and I can live with that. At the same time, I don't represent AA, never can, never will, because if you're watching this and you are in AA, you know I can't speak for you, and if you're new, I can't speak for you either. It's a one-day experience in fellowship, the one which we're in now. What I have learned though, all these people around me have knowledge, experience, strength and hope to share about how life works, and especially how it doesn't work as well. Because we all have that experience of life not working because of drink. So if we can get sober and stay sober one day at a time and change our outlook so we can really experience life rather than hiding away, we can be open to life and living reality where feelings work in the moment of now. After all, the fellowship of AA is about emotional and spiritual welfare and helping people find their free choices, freedom to live as they choose, one day at a time. And I emphasise that because a lot of people think, oh my God, what is this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous? Well, to me it was the last chance to learn, and I had nowhere else to go. No one else seemed to have an answer which would work on and on and on. And at the same time, you only have to do it for a day. Now, how simple is that? Might sound like nonsense, but it's working for me. It's been some years. But I do talk about what happened before and why I need to remind myself. I'm somebody who tries to live the 12-step program, or the principles, 12-step principles, so I understand why life is working well and why life doesn't work well some of the time as well. Because life is good, bad and ugly. But to understand AA, I'm just going to share the AA preamble and what it's there for. It's not there to stop you doing anything. It's there for people with a desire to get sober and start their life open again. This is how I see it. And I've got to write to a friend about why they were disappointed with AA, and it comes down to their own self-destructive mode and wanting to be fixed, and that was me as well. So I see it and I understand it, but I can't change another person. Another person can only change what they decide to do. So the preamble of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is shared at every meeting, I hope, or certainly here in London, UK. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and then help others to recover from alcoholism. Common problem, alcoholic. Common solution, not drinking one day at a time. And how to do it. I didn't know how to do it. I could not stop my addiction. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. End of. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with anything. It's not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, and it does not wish to engage in any controversy. It neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So it's got one key element, a desire to help people and to keep sober, or keep sober and help other people. After that, your life is your own. You own what you do and how you live your life. Now, it's not easy. So that's why I'm covering the 12 steps over a year. Each month in the year I cover one step. So step 1, January, all about being powerless over alcohol, and if I take a drink life will get unmanageable. And then step 2, which is this month, came to believe that a power greater than me could restore me to sanity. Well, it happened by accident, really, because I still don't know about God. I still don't know whether I'm an agnostic or an atheist, or I still don't know whether I believed at some stages, started to believe other things. Very confused chap. But the power greater than me turned out to be the wisdom of other people, and listening to them, and being with them, sober people as well. So, for February 15th, 2013, this is where it ended up for me, where I was thinking this morning. Promises, promises. I kept on promising myself that I would stop drinking and life would start afresh. This was a long time before I even knew anything about AA, the fellowship of AA. And then I kept on promising the world that I would stop drinking and show them I could be fit and healthy. After 2 years in an anxiety state, with my first big nervous breakdown behind me, which was in 1996, I had one drink, and the relief was palpable. I felt it so deeply, and it started a path of a new rock bottom. Having been certified as burnt out and useless in the finance industry, because of my ethics mainly, I was told directly, we can't employ you, you're too honest. So that's a bit of a shock, because I've been going along with a lot of dishonesty, and that's what broke me on my principles. The dishonesty of, it doesn't matter, maybe another time. It was always a case of, if I can get a contract and work, self-employed, I'll be okay. If I keep fit and work hard physically, go down the gym every day for 2 or 3 hours, I'll be okay. I just didn't realise, and I'll be okay. And if I can find myself in a relationship, I'll be okay. I just didn't realise I was a burnt out case, because I denied it. I didn't want to be a burnt out case, and I didn't realise that I had absolutely no protection against anything. I was completely broken, and it's an absolutely horrible place of no way out of the dark, desolate times. Anyway, a few years later, bankrupt in every endeavour and absolutely nowhere left to go. When I say bankrupt, I didn't go bankrupt with a bank or huge debts, although I could have if I hadn't sold up and run away. This is what happened. But I was bankrupt in every endeavour and absolutely nowhere left to go. I did go to the fellowship, and I heard these promises, the AA promises, and thought at the time they were empty messages. and I could not understand what they were talking about. I really couldn't understand anything, and all this thing about AA promises, will they come true? People used to say, we think, are these extravagant promises? And we used to say, we think not. I just joined in because I didn't know any better. However, after 90 days of incessant attendance at as many meetings as I could fit into each day, I still couldn't connect with these promises and the happy faces around me, which was horrible. I was looking for a fix, looking outwards to what they were doing and wanting to be joining in with the happy, prosperous people when I had no flipping clue how to do it. I still couldn't connect with these promises and the happy faces around me. I was looking for the fix, looking outwards and not realising that for 90 days I hadn't had a drink. Don't drink and go to meetings, I was told. I did exactly that, and the first promise happened in spite of me. I was sober for 90 days in fellowship. Wasn't happy though. I was shocked. I was just bloody shocked all the time. It was a shock to my system to realise that the most effective way to treat my alcoholism was to be in the company of people who desired sobriety and then sort out everything as time permits. I was too frightened to be happy about the 90 days sober, which is true, and I was still looking over my shoulder for someone to trip me up or put me down. Nobody did this in fellowship. As to the rest of the world, every obstacle seemed to slow me down. I knew the answers, and why couldn't it be so? And the answer was, I was only as important as the other person in the queue. So, regardless of my needs, which got worse over time, personal needs, because of different things happening to me, I had to endure what everybody else endures, being in a queue. Ah, dear me. Anyway, so I was too happy to be sober, too happy to celebrate sobriety. I went and collected my 90-day chip, 3 months sober. And I smiled, and inwardly I couldn't feel anything except, who's going to snatch it away from me? And of course the only person who could is me. And I was still fearful. So nobody did snatch anything away from me in fellowship. As to the rest of the world, every obstacle seemed to slow me down. I had to cooperate with people and realise truly I had no power over any situation at all. And especially if I drank, I was doomed. And without drinking every day, it felt like doomsday in those early days of recovery, because it was extraordinarily painful, physically and emotionally. The doom I faced was in me and not in the world, isolated at the start, then included in a harsh reality. I just didn't understand reality without a drink at first. And then it dawned on me that maybe I could relax just a little bit and try listen more to how things worked for other people in sobriety. Something I didn't realise, I did not know how lonely I was, until I started to believe that sober was possible and people might care and love me. I mean, all this time in the background, family wanted me to be okay, rather than waiting for a telephone call to say I'd been found dead in some god-awful place in a ditch. So, fellowship starts with how to accept friendship for me. But when I had the books of AA and I kept on reading them, expecting a miracle change in me. Nothing happened, but something did, very slowly. I mean, after 90 days of not drinking, even though I couldn't really feel it, I was still reading avidly because I didn't sleep very much. I didn't have my buffer, my alcohol for oblivion, so sleep never happened, it seemed. So when I read about the AA promises, I couldn't understand why people would write in a book that I would lose fear of economic insecurity and lose fear of uncertainty. I couldn't believe it. Why should I? It doesn't feel like that to me. So the first 90 days had taught me that fellowship meetings were full of people who sometimes seem to be okay, because what you see is what you get. Sometimes people are wrecked emotionally and not coping. They come into fellowship and share about it. A bit of a shock, but it was helping me understand my own pain. And they were alright, some of them, and a lot of people were like me, just wanting something to block out the pain. What I didn't realise at the beginning was that I stopped obsessing about drink and having a drink. But I still wanted to be fixed. So I stopped obsessing about that, and the amount of fear and anxiety had diminished, and I had been helped with a roof over my head and just enough to live on, provided I ate plenty of biscuits and tea and coffee free in the fellowship meetings. London's a very expensive place, and yet I was still putting money into the pot. And then somebody said to me, "Listen, I know you are on the absolute minimum bread line. Stop putting money in, I'll put some in for you." Fuck off. How dare you? I know how to manage my finances. I didn't. Otherwise I wouldn't have been eating wouldn't have been eating the biscuits and drinking as much tea with sugar in as I could. Just so I didn't feel that hungry. Anyway, looking back now with hindsight, I still feel very uncertain about any promise to a newcomer. Now I know what happened to me. I spent a lifetime in fear of not being good enough, which meant I always tried and strived to be perfect. Spent a lifetime putting on a brave face and trying to be the person you wanted me to be. And I spent a lifetime hiding behind a shell, my ego, contriving to be the perfect man for the perfect girl, the best worker you could imagine, and accumulating things which had no real value to me. I just accumulated things. And the revelation which really came slowly for me was simply learning to have enough courage to change my outlook, faith in doing the next right thing, and building up my confidence so I could like myself enough to be sober one more day at a time. And I do like myself enough to be sober, but I also know if I don't go to meetings and I don't attend to what's going on inside me, good, bad and ugly, I can go downhill. I also know I have clinical depression, and that needs professional help. And the gift of sobriety, being alive long enough to catch a virus which shut down my pancreas so I don't make insulin. So these days I'm type 1 diabetic and dependent on injections to try and keep my blood sugars where they need be. And that's courtesy of being alive long enough to get these things, and courtesy of fellowship for keeping it in the day, because that's the only way you can deal with some of this stuff. So 3 ailments in one now, and just enough to cope at the beginning, and now more able to cope, that sometimes I can't cope and I ask for help, or I don't know and I ask for help. So letting go of the old life, letting go the fear of being found out, letting go the need to put on a brave face and pretend to be okay, and letting go my ego, which told me I was right and had to have the right answers for life. Not only my life, but the rest of the world as well. So I had to let go all those things and start afresh. Then, letting in the new life, courage to change and face reality just for a day, developing faith in the words shared and the wisdom to be experienced, and then the confidence simply to be me, just to be me for today. And to be a learner, always be a learner, and to accept help and be included in something far bigger than me, which is called family, community, society. Just be a part of, to be included, and understand every single human, no matter what they do in life for a living, no matter what their beliefs are still human like me. And if I respect them with equality, hopefully equality will come my way. Not always, because it's an imperfect world. So there's still pretty darn ugly people out there who have not got your best interest at heart. And given this week, where murderous things are happening in South Africa, and one particular person has been singled out, having murdered their girlfriend apparently, which is a shock, you wouldn't expect it. And then we've all been eating horses and donkeys in the European Union, courtesy of the butchers who have supplied it to other people and then labelled it as beef. So what are we going to do? I mean, I've been suggesting that we ought to get some horse stock cubes and some donkey stock cubes, so we still understand what beef might taste like, because beef is going to taste different. And we have to ruminate on that, just like the cows do. And it's a bit strange and a bit peculiar. You know, the whole world and the supply chain, as it is called, offers great opportunity to put things into our food which we don't know about and are labelled wrongly. So we have a National Health Service in the UK where the people in charge get paid off large amounts of money and have gagging contracts, so they can't tell us what went on and how bad it was. And we have the head of the NHS, who apparently knew what was going on, but because he knew what was going on and how to put it right, he's still there. But nobody has been held to account. In fact, the ones who were worst have got paid off and told to get lost. Very expensive. Something's happening to my machine. I hope it's still working. Anyway, I'm having a rant, aren't I? So Mr. Pistorius, the runner, is in trouble, and it's a shock. The economic situation in the EU is in recession. UK isn't quite as bad. We've all been eating horse and donkey. Nay, nay, and thrice nay, we have. And nobody's being taken to account. Now, within fellowship, we take ourselves to account, and we look after ourselves. We look at our history, what we've done, how bad it was, and what are the possibilities. So this is where it gets to. Letting in the new life, courage to change and face reality just for today, developing faith in the words shared and the wisdom shared, and then the confidence to simply be me, to be a learner, always to accept help and be included in something far bigger than me. The old life, which I can see in the 6th step, which is about fear and extremes. And then the 7th step, letting in the wisdom of the world through people, places and things, and facing reality just for a day. So if somewhere in the contracts of all these people, the politicians and then the food agencies who are supposed to provide certificates to retailers that everything's all right, well, our government cut that department by half and took their eye off the horse and the bull and the donkey and the cows. I mean, cows are more valuable apparently than horses and donkeys. What does that tell us? Anyway, I had no clue until later that the 12 steps could only happen with life experience. So I read the books and thought, oh, with my thinking head, I was trying to understand an emotional and spiritual way of life. Intellect, thinking, is what often stops us from feeling the feelings, because we suppress them with our thinking. So when somebody asks you, how are you feeling today, most likely you say okay, because you don't want to discuss your feelings. These days, if someone asks me how I feel, I might say I feel bloody awful, but you can't do anything about it. And they say, oh good, I haven't got any answers for you today. And I said, no, I haven't got any answers for me either. It's just going to be bloody awful all day. That's not really health. But that's life. And then better days happen. So the 12-step works in sorting out our history and then help us to live an emotional and spiritual life. What? Now this is interesting because I really never understood my feelings and reality in the moment. I often missed people's friendship because I was frightened of their friendship and to be included, because I didn't know how to be loved. So if anybody showed me affection, friendliness, the stiff upper lip and British attitude of not showing feelings stunted my emotional development. But not now. Not now. So I might be in a situation with people and I hid how I felt, and it reads like I was a chameleon and I was trying to be whatever I thought you wanted. I thought what you wanted and then tried to deliver it, and of course I couldn't do that because I didn't really know what you wanted. So I don't need to do that today. Freedom of saying yes to the right thing and freedom of saying no to the wrong things is always in the moment of now, as much as I can. Well, nearly in the moment of now. I can still be weighed down by feelings and thoughts from the old life and doing something similar, which is not good. You know, why go back and do something you're good at, which you didn't like, but you did it because it looked right, but it didn't feel right. It just was putting on a show. I don't want to do that anymore. Why should I? So, anything with the old life, which can hurt me, because going back and doing it again is like post-traumatic stress disorder. It brings up nightmares and more sleeplessness. And that's not good. But, or rather, if I trust my feelings in the moment, I keep my freedom to understand what I can do and cannot do today, and truly understand the wisdom of being learned and understanding the true wisdom of now. Could there have been an easier, softer way? Well, not in my case. I had to go as low as one can and be completely alone, in oblivion and desolate with drink. It was only then I realised if life could get no worse, I might as well ask for help from anyone, anywhere. And if it had not been for AA as part of what happened next, I doubt there would have been any story to tell about recovery today. Now, fellowship is the bedrock of my sobriety. It makes it possible to love people and be loved back. I didn't really understand love, but I do now. But affection is something I learn. I learn affection now. I don't have... How is it? There are people I love, and I do genuinely love them. But it's also difficult when they love me back. But I'm learning. Yeah. The experiences from... now this is... Yes. Connected in the moment of now, we never know what might happen next. And the gift of being open, honest and willing keeps me on track, whatever the endeavours may be today. And I don't fight... I fight... And I fight, don't know what to do now. Why have I put it like that? Oh yeah, I don't fight the answers which come from outside me. You know, it's like not invented here. How did I write that? These days I am very able to accept help and ask for it if I need it. And sometimes I get help inadvertently when I don't think I need it. Like people say to me, you look a bit off today, or you look a bit pale, and I haven't been checking my blood sugars. Well, I have this morning and had the right doses of insulin, and I wasn't paying attention, so the injection, the second injection, hurt like fuck. But anyway, that's just me. Yeah, the answers come from inside and outside fellowship these days. So fellowship is my bedrock. At the same time, many of the answers come from people I meet on the bus, or as I go by, as I shuffle along. When I ask the right people in the right places, and they have space to help me, because one of the things I've realised is people's time. People work at 100% all the time. So when we ask them, can you help me please, they have to devote some time to us. And the same applies the other way around. So if somebody asks for help, we have to make time if we can. So, final paragraph. During my drinking years, I really did succeed at work, and the success kept me going when everything else seemed to be lost. So as long as I succeeded at work, I kept on going, and I kept on going, and I didn't realise the exhaustion and the burnout that was happening, which led to a nervous breakdown. I was broken on my own principles, basically. And that's what happens sometimes. We find we are trying to do a good job in a very bad situation, and I didn't know I could get out of it by just saying, no, I'm off, because of all the other things I thought I was responsible for. Anyway, that's good, because now I know the difference. The experiences from work, the experiences of relationships with women in my life had been beautiful and loving. There's no doubt about it. I adored and loved my partners in those times, and yet behind all of this was always a feeling that something would go wrong, and I would always need to work harder and harder to be safe and find, well, peace and serenity. There was no peace and serenity in work. It was just work, and I put more effort in than I thought I ought. Actually, I just put everything into it and then lost the plot. There was peace and serenity in the romantic relationships, and then self-doubt, my self-doubt, which I did not see at the time, meant that any girl would feel uncertainty with me. If I did not know myself too well, how on earth could anybody else? And nowadays I realise that every day we simply learn a little bit more about who we are and who we are becoming, and not knowing is absolutely key. So if we set ourselves up, when I look like that and behave like that and can feel that, I'll be okay. You're missing the journey. It's the journey which gets us to wherever we get to. So it's good to have aspirations, career, relationships, or whatever it is, but realise you've got to be in the moment, and that maybe with an open, honest and willing approach it will happen. But always, I come back to this, and the serenity prayer, always the can do and cannot do, and the wisdom to know the difference in the moment, and hopefully all day is where I get to. So the old life of being burnt out, fear abounding, worry about could I ever be the person I used to be, the eclectic counsellor? The answer is no, because I don't have that boundary or barrier in my head that I used to use. Alcohol. So I don't need to be embroiled that deep in what I used to do therapeutically on a business, commercial and personal level. I don't do that anymore. Life is more about what I can do today. So it is the serenity prayer which keeps me safe and sound and on track, with fellowship, sobriety, so I have the freedom to be me, freedom to understand emotional and spiritual living now. So insanity can happen at any time of day, because insanity happens, mad world. It can happen all around us, as with Pistorius, as with cows and donkeys and horses. They all show affection, you know, these animals, and we eat them. Mind you, what other way do we know? Well, it's a personal choice, of course. So anyway, more philosophical than it need be. Keep it simple today. Can do, can't do. What I can do, open, honest and willing, courage to change, yeah. Can't do, don't go back to fear, trying to do it all on my own and think I know better than you, because I don't. And I certainly don't know better than you when it comes to personal faith, opinions and what you do. So sobriety gets us free to make those choices, and as to God or your understanding of a higher power, for me I've already explained it. Truth, love and wisdom abounds around us if we can access it and we're sober. And believe you me, I started with nothing, absolutely nothing left, and certifiable, absolutely certifiable, and I ran away from it. So that was even worse. Serenity prayer, can do, can't do, I'm off. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is just for today. Your freedom back, one day at a time. And I value your freedom, because that's the wisdom I'm going to get back. if I ever encounter you face to face. And it's just for today.